Hello, this is the Atlantic Current, and I'm Tull from the Irish Politics newsletter. And as always, I'm with my good friend and co-host, Vince Martin.
Hey, Tull. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
There's only one story dominating the news on this side of the Atlantic Ocean, and this is a story about Seamus Culleton. Have you heard of him, Vincent?
I have. The Irishman now in custody of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Yep.
Yes, originally from County Kilkenny, in the southeast part of the country, Culleton was running a plastering business in the Boston area.
Yeah.
He was arrested on the 9th of September 2025. He was shipped off to El Paso in Texas. The story broke on Monday in the Irish Times. He told RT Radio that conditions at his detention centre in Texas were akin to torture.
Yeah.
And that the atmosphere was volatile.
Yeah, he's used the term concentration camp too, I believe, in other interviews. Yeah.
And it's a name that's been used quite regularly here in Ireland. He feared for his life, he said, not from other prisoners with him, but from the guards. He entered the US in 2009 on a visa waiver program and overstayed the 90-day limit, obviously, by, nearly 20 years. So he married a US citizen and retrospectively applied for lawful permanent residency.
Right.
He obtained something called a statutory exemption that allowed him to work there. That means, we know you're here illegally, but you're allowed working.
Yeah, when he gets detained by ICE, he does have a work permit. Yeah. And he was in the process of trying to get his green card, which essentially would make him a legal immigrant.
This is where things get a bit tricky. His family pleaded on the national airwaves in the last couple of days that, he's a victim of circumstance. And he is, of course. He only got caught because by accident they ran his license plate. 9 times out of 10, he probably wouldn't have got caught. So I have a lot of sympathy.
He's at a chain of home improvement stores here called Home Depot, and there have been a lot of stories that ICE is basically sitting on Home Depot because for at least 30 years now, Home Depot has been known as a place where you go find undocumented workers. Like, it's such a trope that it's in shows and movies and stuff like that. You go to Home Depot and you find a guy who's from Latin America, who's here illegally, and he jumps in your truck and you pay him $60 on lunch for the day, and then you drop him back off at Home Depot. So it's not entirely coincidental that ICE was at that chain. He's a victim of circumstance in the sense that he was there. ICE was probably not just there randomly.
They were staking the place out, probably.
There have been a lot of stories that they have focused on that particular chain for reasons that, from their perspective, actually make sense. If you were going to go look for illegal immigrants, you would probably go to Home Depot. Now, if you were going to look for violent, law-breaking illegal immigrants, I think a lot of people might point out that's not where you would go.
No.
But if you were just trying to get as many people out of the country as possible, if you maybe had quotas to hit, there's a joke about it like in the American version of The Office. It's that kind of trope. Home Depots always have undocumented immigrants.
When you said about the ICE agents and a quota there, are they getting bonuses for hitting their quotas?
It's just so hard to know. There's reporting that there's bounties and quotas and things like that. There's denials going both ways. I am not entirely sure. I don't believe that's officially known. Certainly not public department-wide policy, but there are reports that that's happening. And even if there's not official, a cash bonus on your paycheck, people within that system probably are personally incentivized to get their numbers up because that's a good way to get promoted and good way to get recognized and all those sorts of things. That's how bureaucracies work, right? It's not always just money that moves the organization in the direction of the leadership.
Of course not. There's multiple issues at play there. Mr. Culleton's 38, so he's been over there 14 years now. I think almost 15 years. 17
years. You forgot.
Am I after forgetting? Is it 17 years?
Well, I think it's at 2009, right? Yeah, he's been here for 17 years.
17, sorry, yes. I had something else in my head there.
Well, I thought you were just doing the middle-aged guy thing where you're like, 2009 can't be 17 years ago. I remember 2009. I was a grown-up. It can only be like 6 years ago.
There's probably that at play there. Okay, so he's in the United States since 2009. He started his own plastering business. By all means, it's quite successful. Now, things get murky here for him because the wife gave an interview to RTE Radio, and when you listen to an interview sometimes, you think to yourself, something's not right. Something's off. Yeah. We're not being told something. She's holding back on something. I got thinking, I put Mr. Culleton's name into a search database. in terms of research, if a name comes across my desk, I'm asked to vet a candidate. Go find out what you know about this person, X, Y, Z. The first thing I will always do is find out where the person's from. I'll put their name into a local newspaper. Okay?
Right.
Because you will find everything you want. If he's ever been in trouble, that's the first place it's going to be reported, because local newspapers will have somebody down the courthouse and they're just writing stuff down. You know, Tull McAdoo was caught peeing outside the Garda station. He's been fined $50 and told not to do it again by the judge because he knows his dad.
Right.
Okay. And it's not even dirt, it's just properly vetting your candidate. So you put the name into the search engine of the local newspaper.
Do these search engines tell you if you have a tenant that you still owe €3,000 to, or is that a different search engine?
Unfortunately for Jim Gavin, everybody in the media already knew that story. So there was no search engine needed.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So unfortunately for Mr. Culleton, he failed to appear in court in Ireland in 2009 on a drugs-related charge. The background to the drugs-related charge is that he had 25 ecstasy tablets. Do you know what ecstasy tablets are in the States, or do you have a different name for them?
Nope, we call them ecstasy, yep.
Yeah, MDMA, otherwise known as, I think that's a scientific name for it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of anybody doing ecstasy in years, so I wouldn't have come across it. Something you'd hear in the late 90s in rave clubs in Europe and stuff like that, you know.
It's no longer the drug of choice. It's really a sad commentary on the younger generation. You know, when we were in our 20s, all people wanted to do was take this drug and go hug everybody.
So he was caught with 25 of those, or trying to dispose of 25 of those tablets, which would have had a street value at the time at, I think, maybe $250, $250.
Right.
You know, it wasn't a whole lot of drugs on the grand scale. I mean, and I've known guys do 15 tablets in one night. So
what?
25 tablets,
really?
Or 25 tablets over a weekend.
Oh my God.
As one friend said to me earlier on, do you remember such and such a person? He did 25 tablets over a weekend in Madrid. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Right, okay, yeah, I remember that.
That's insane, because that's the drug where you could always tell who was doing it because they had giant bottles of water, right? There was always this thing that it dehydrated you and you could get brain damage.
Yeah.
If you took one of them. Yeah. I can't imagine.
The long and short of it, he was caught with 25 tablets. Do you know what I mean? This guy wasn't Pablo Escobar. I doubt he's even, you know, how high up is he in the scale of drug dealing in a local town like New Ross in Ireland, population of 1,000 people or something, you know? It's not a whole lot. But the problem there is that he skipped bail in Ireland and arrived in the United States. So he either lied on his form to get into the United States, or he got into the United States via Canada or something else, somewhere else. Who knows? Nobody knows. He hasn't told anybody. He hasn't said how he got to the United States. So there's two competing trains of thought here at the moment. First one is that no matter how much wrong he's done, he doesn't deserve to get snatched off the street and put in a concentration camp.
Right.
Which is a valid argument, very valid argument.
Yep.
Point two is that if somebody did that in our country, we'd be willing to keep them. Would we not want to send them home? And by any kind of rule of law, if you're a centrist dad, a left-wing guy or right-wing guy, you want people to follow the law, right? You want people to obey the laws of your country. So are the Irish people having their cake and eating it here? Or was he right to be snatched off the streets by ICE? It's a massive moral quandary in terms of the Irish people. There's a sense in Ireland that we think we're a little bit special in America. And I'm sure you've met plenty of Irish Americans and probably illegal Irish Americans in your time, Vince.
Yeah.
And that we should get some sort of special treatment when in reality is that we're no different from any other immigrants.
Yeah, that's fair. Out of those two arguments, which argument do you think in Ireland is kind of winning right now, or which side do you think most people are taking?
At the moment, it's 50-50. He had the nation's sympathy on Monday and Tuesday.
Right.
On Wednesday, the story broke, he skipped bail for, a drug dealing charge.
Yeah,
it wasn't a massive drug dealing charge. I suppose there's a sense with some people feeling that they've been a little bit conned.
Right.
So we have a thing in Ireland called unveiled bucked. Do you know what that means, Vincent? It's Irish ascuelga.
No.
It means the poor mouth. You have this saying in the United States, don't you?
Yep.
The poor mouth. A fella giving you the poor mouth. Things are terrible. Things are awful. It hasn't stopped raining for 30 days, and the kids need shoes and all this kind of crack. And he went on national radio on Liveline, one of the most listened to radio stations in the country, and gave the poor mouth, like he's in a concentration camp. And look, I'm pretty sure the conditions are pretty horrific. There's 35 people have died in these places, have they? I've read that.
Yeah, I forget what the most recent number is, but there have been a lot of deaths, yeah. One of which in Texas was actually ruled by the local coroner to be a homicide. And that incident that was ruled a homicide actually took place at the same center where Culleton is being held. So that does support his claim that the conditions are substandard, and it also provides a little support for what you said earlier, that he was more worried about being killed by the guards than by another detainee.
And El Paso is generally considered one of the worst of these places. Is it a case of it's the Wild West down there? Or?
I'm honestly not sure about the nature of the specific facilities. We have reports of abuse and poor conditions coming from all over the place, and Democratic Congress people not being allowed to visit facilities, even though that they have the right to do so and things like that. I can't sit here and tell you that Culleton's story of what's going on is absolutely right, but it certainly jibes with a lot of other stories that we've heard, unfortunately, over the last year plus.
It's very sad for his family. It's very sad for his wife. And it's very sad for his poor mother. His father died in 2023 and he couldn't come back for his funeral. Every illegal Irish American can never come home to Ireland in case to get caught trying to get back into the United States.
Right.
They get barred for 10 years, is it? I think it is.
I think that's right, yeah.
Do we know the number of Irish Americans, illegal Irish Americans?
The Journal, in this back in 2017, they did kind of like a little fact check, and they were saying that the number that had always been circulated in Ireland was that there were about 50,000 illegal or undocumented immigrants from Ireland in the United States. And they looked closely and they thought that number was fake. It was actually closer to 10 to 15,000. If that's the case, probably 8,000 of them are bartenders in Midtown Manhattan. I don't know where the other 7,000 are. But yeah, when I lived in Manhattan, that was always a running joke. And along with the guy, when you walked in to an Irish pub in particular, the guy had like the thickest brogue you ever heard. And then if you saw him, the next morning out at the breakfast table, he had no draw whatsoever. It was just a hell of a way to ring up some extra tips.
It's a bit of a cause célèbre here now in Ireland because he will be deported, okay? I don't see any roadmap for him to being staying in the United States. His family have done the undocumented Irish Americans no favours here, I think.
Yeah.
First out the door, Trump is able to go on TV and genuinely say, look, it's not just Latinos we're thrown out of the country. Yep. We're actually, we're throwing white people out of the country now.
There's actually an op-ed on Fox News yesterday making exactly that point.
Was it? And was Seamus Culleton involved there on Fox News, or was it just a general?
It was on their website, but the author pointed specifically to the Culleton case and said liberals keep calling this immigration policy racist and they're only looking to round up brown and black people. But no, look, this is actually about immigration policy and the rule of law. It's not about race. So, yeah, there's absolutely no way Trump can go back on this. Because, it'll just supercharge that racism argument. Oh, look, you're making an exception for the Irish guy that you never would for somebody from Colombia or wherever.
Exactly. So he's after giving grist to the mill to the people that are trying to put distance between racism and Trump's policies. That's his first thing. Now, every illegal Irish American from Boston to New York are going to be looking over their shoulders. They won't be able to rest easy. I mean, it's really highlighted the Irish American problem in the United States. So on the politics side of things, Monday and Tuesday, you had politicians rushing to defend Mr. Culleton. And come Wednesday, when the revelations broke, they started backing away very, very quickly. Now, some of them are still saying, of course, it's terrible. He should be snatched off the streets by ICE, etc., no matter what he's done. Now, Seamus Culleton's problem here is that if he's deported to Shannon, he's taken off the plane, and there's a warrant still out for his arrest for drug dealing. And it wasn't a massive amount, as I said, He's going from one set of handcuffs to another set of handcuffs.
Yeah.
The sympathy just goes from you. Sympathy just, it's gone then. Even though you see the sympathy draining away out of the political and the media establishment. And there's an element of the media having a bit of a problem here that they didn't do their due diligence on Seamus Culleton, because he'd been arrested for being drunk and disorderly also before that in 2007. A bit of a list there of, he had a bit of a wild misspent youth and it's unfortunately catching up with him now.
Yeah. Good Lord, I hope that doesn't happen to me.
Oh yeah. This is the thing. I mean, 25 ecstasy tablets isn't a whole lot. Who hasn't been drunk and disorderly? I feel desperately sorry for him. But on the flip side, he's an illegal immigrant in another country, and I don't think the Irish people, the way the mood is at the moment about immigration, not just in the United States, but in Ireland and in Europe. If a fella was off the boat from Nigeria and arrived in Cork Harbour and he said, look, I was dealing drugs, I've skipped bail in Nigeria, would we be sent back? We're speaking out of both sides of our mouth as a country at the moment in regards to immigration, especially illegal immigration from Ireland into the United States. We were looking for special attention.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't think that's terribly different from what's going on here. Basically, most people want ICE to do what it's supposed to do. Most people want illegal immigrants removed. Most people, want more enforcement than we had in the past couple of years, but they want it done kind of a certain way. Obviously, the shootings in Minneapolis are not how they wanted it, but even you do kind of have these individual cases where people go, well, I want the illegal immigrants out. And then you say, well, what about, this poor kid or this poor family or this bad story? Oh, well, yeah, I don't like that one either. I'm sympathetic to wanting both those things to be true. That, can we just go through all the illegal immigrants and pick out exactly the right ones? And but unfortunately, that's just kind of not the way it is. It is interesting to hear you discuss kind of that split sense in Ireland, because I do wonder if looking at the U.S. from the outside, if it's obvious that there's that same split sense here. I think we have basically a majority of people who want ICE to do their work and also don't want them to do it the way that they're doing it. We're seeing the political effect of that with the Trump administration. They actually announced Thursday morning that they're ending the big surge of ICE agents into Minneapolis that caused so much drama and the 2 deaths and things like that. And that is basically a response to the fact that when they surged agents into Minneapolis, Americans were broadly in favor of that action, but based on what they did, Americans aren't anymore.
Public mood can change on a hair, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another aspect of this in terms of Micheál Martin on Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, visiting the White House next month.
Yeah.
So you've a whole chorus of people saying that the Irish government is not doing enough to help him. But like anything else, you go to Trump, the White House, or wherever else, back channels, and you go, yeah, I'll take care of it. He's not going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And you're going to spend political capital trying to get Trump to do something that he's not going to do in the first place. Particularly Micheál Martin's in a very tricky position now politically, because he talks tough on immigration coming into Ireland. How is he going to do that to Trump? How is he going to go to the White House and say to Trump, about that immigration thing, we'd like, for you to look after the Irish people, or whatever the case may be. He's in an insidious position, trying to go to the White House to plead for this special case. And it should also be pointed out that Seamus Culleton has refused to sign the papers. He's not kept there against his will in El Paso. He's refusing to sign the papers and to get on a plane and come home to Ireland.
But in his defense, it's not really a hugely pro-human rights policy to say that either you waive your rights to contest your deportation. And let's be clear, this is sometimes a debate in American politics. He does have rights. The Constitution, it's been held over and over again. The Constitution is not citizens only. He has rights. It is kind of an unfair policy to say, well, if you don't waive your rights to contest your deportation, we're going to detain you for however long we feel like it in whatever conditions you feel like. Now, you're right. He doesn't have to be in El Paso. But as we said up front, he was in the middle of the process to become a legal immigrant. He is married to a citizen. He was on track. He basically had one more interview to do his green card. And one of the Kafkaesque things here is that he got detained in September. His interview was in October. They won't let him out or let him do the interview virtually to finish the requirements that would make him a legal immigrant. I am sympathetic to that idea. He, at some point, became someone who is at least doing things the right way. That point was obviously not in 2009. It wasn't in 2019 either. But this is why the term illegal immigrant in America is so contested, because I think he would argue, and his supporters and his attorney would argue, he's no longer an illegal immigrant. Yeah. He has been in the process of doing things the right way.
He was put before a judge, and the judge said they can deport him if he signs the papers. So It's a legal minefield. It's a very emotional thing, I think, for everybody involved with his family, his new wife. His mum is ill, I believe. His story's all over CBS, CNN, Fox. He's inadvertently become a poster boy for white illegal immigration.
And as we said up front, he's going to be very useful. He is a useful poster boy for people on the right. That's why that op-ed was written. And I am sure the point made in that op-ed is going to be made by Republican officials. If J.D. Vance tweeted exactly that point, wouldn't surprise you in the least.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I think this story has a bit to go.
Yeah.
And hopefully it has a happy outcome for all involved. I don't think there's any easy answer here, is there? There's none. So.
I don't think there's an easy answer. Anybody hoping that Culleton is free in the U.S. a year from now? I hope it's true. I mean, I kind of joked about not wanting that, my own misspent youth to come back at me. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you do stupid stuff when you're 22, it really shouldn't ruin your life when you're 38. But
exactly, yeah. Redemption for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. But politically, man, it's just really hard to see how the Trump administration can back down here. Now, that said, I said the same thing about Minneapolis, and I said the same thing about Greenland. They are de-escalating. Hopefully this case follows that trend, but I personally am not terribly hopeful. I think it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tough for him personally, so I hope he's going to be okay. Let's get away from this to more the darkly amusing side of American politics, as opposed to the darkly tragic side of American politics at the moment.
Exactly.
How many Trump figures do you think are in the Epstein Files, Vince? Close friends of Trump, in his circle, not necessarily in government, but in his circle.
Well, I'm sure they all are. I mean, that's, but define quote in the files. That's, I think, one of the big lessons of the last 10 days or however long it's been since this batch was released.
Today, this dump of emails.
Right.
Do you have an idea? It's an unlucky number.
13, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. 13 of his close associates are in the Epstein Files, including himself. So, now, the one that stood out this week, obviously, was Howard Lutnick. I have to get this right because it's saying it wrong to everybody and to anyone that people, my American friends, are looking at me and say, what are you talking about? Howard Lutnick. Well, do you want to know who else is on the list?
Well, again, I want to know what list this is. I mean, they're mentioned. There's a lot of people mentioned.
There's 13 people mentioned as in his inner circle.
Right, but they're mentioned in the files. But if you were mentioned in the Epstein files, it doesn't mean anything.
I think it means, do you have 13 close friends in the Epstein Files?
No, because my friends aren't like wealthy, powerful people who get talked about by random people.
Do you know who doesn't have 13 friends in the Epstein Files?
Who?
Obama. Obama
does
that's
13
fair. Friends in the Epstein Files. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton probably does. Elon Musk definitely does. We want to zoom in on Howard Lutnick.
Right. We do need to zoom in because I do want to push back a little. Like this idea of someone's in the files, it's different in degree, but not in kind to the people who are saying, oh, look, pizza is in the Epstein files 973 times. So, Pizzagate was right. Like a lot of these people are mentioned. I have no idea what the former Attorney General Bill Barr is doing in the Epstein files, but I'm guessing it wasn't emailing Jeffrey Epstein in 2015 asking if he wanted to come to a barbecue somewhere in the Caribbean, right? I mean, the fact that someone's in the files, I don't think is terribly interesting. What Lutnick did is probably worth talking about because it's going to be talked about quite a bit for the foreseeable future, right?
Yes, he gave an interview to a podcast a while back and said essentially that he knew Epstein was a pretty bad guy because he saw his massage table.
To be clear, in like 2005, I think, or like 2006.
Yeah, 2005 or
right.
6, yeah.
Yeah.
It was 20 years ago, I said.
Right. He saw the massage table and he was so creeped out.
That himself and his wife ran from the building, ran from his house.
Yeah.
Like they ran from the building with their head on fire by his description because they were so shocked and appalled by the massage table. I'm not sure, do they not have massage tables in New York or I don't know.
It's because it was right in the middle of the kitchen. There was nowhere to eat.
It was probably being used as a sushi table also. It's so he gave this very melodramatic explanation of why himself and his wife ran from the house and were never seen.
He was so creeped out he would never speak to that man again. Because he just knew in his bones what a disgusting human being he was. Yeah.
Were his direct words, aren't they?
No.
It was something along those lines though, was it? He used the word disgusting, yeah?
Yeah. that they would never, ever associate with him.
So what does he go and do a couple of years later, Vince, after Epstein has admitted to being a dirty so-and-so?
And after Epstein has been convicted of being a sex
he
trafficker.
admitted to and was convicted of being a pedophile.
Right.
What did Howard Lutnick do? He went and visited him on his island.
Yep.
And who did he have with him?
Yes, family. Yeah.
Yes, the wife and kids. Not only the wife and kids, he had some nannies with him as well. You know, the locals called it pedophile island. That wasn't a concoction of the internet. Interviews with locals called it pedophile island. So he brought his 4 children, 2 nannies, and the wife after.
Yeah, after this was publicly known. Yep.
After this was publicly known. And he had to admit to this in front of a Senate hearing, and things got very awkward very quickly. So there's been calls for him to step down and resign. Will he?
If you give me even odds on the bet, I'm going to take no.
Why is that?
I've said before, there was so much turnover in the first Trump term. They are just not going to do it this term unless it is absolutely necessary, particularly because it's his second term and he's not running for re-election, as far as we know.
Yeah, who knows?
He is not going to push anybody over unless his base is calling for their head. And the base isn't calling for their head. The base is just going to go along with this. You
have said, of course, in the past that Trump and his administration don't apologize.
No. You saw that with the racist video, right? The Obamas pictured as monkeys.
Yeah.
That was...
Didn't apologize. He doubled down.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that he's not apologizing for that? I don't even mean that like in some self-righteous moral way. Just like in a practical, like, what world are we living in way? Like, if you do that and you didn't see it, which, by the way, I do believe he didn't see it, I don't think that's a good explanation because the President of the United States should not be posting at 3 o'clock in the morning that he hasn't looked at. But, you apologize. But no. So, I mean, if they're not apologizing for that, they sure are not apologizing for Howard Lutnick getting lunch on a Caribbean island in 2012 under any circumstances. Yeah, they're not going to admit it. And so unless they're really, really pushed, and I'm sure they believe that they can ride this out.
There was a striking image yesterday I thought was quite telling. Pam Bondi was in front of another Senate hearing, and there was maybe 8 or 9 Epstein survivors standing behind her. And they stood up behind her and held their hands in the air, and Bondi studiously ignored them. She didn't even look back, didn't acknowledge them. She gave an extraordinary performance as Attorney General yesterday. She said, the Dow is over 50,000 points. Why are you not asking us about that? And
just this bizarre... There's always this thing, particularly here, that Trump supporters drive you nuts because they do whataboutism. You go, look at Trump. He did this deal with the UAE. Look how corrupt he is. They go, well, what about Hunter Biden? You're like, we're not talking about Hunter Biden, you dope. This was almost like organized whataboutism, like in a white binder, which is also hysterical that she had it in a binder. We talked about this on the year-end episode. She started this entire thing with that stupid binder stunt a year ago. Yeah. Still hasn't learned her lesson.
Well, I'm looking at my live stock ticker here, and the Dow Jones has gone under 50,000. So can we ask her now about the Epstein Files?
Yeah, it was a crazy performance from Bondi. There is this sense that American discourse is just a boiling frog, if you're familiar with that metaphor.
Yeah.
Don't apologize, don't discuss, don't even act with respect. And I'm sure Bondi supporters would say the Democrats are being disrespectful too. Maybe the case. That doesn't really excuse her. The way this stuff always works is, it's a little bit of performative stuff from Congress. That's why they have these hearings. Yeah, that's exactly what the Republicans did to Hillary Clinton over Benghazi, by the way. They had her in that chair for 9 hours, giving speeches that would get clipped onto Fox News and boost their profile. Let's not pretend for any second that was part of some deep, detailed investigation into preventing another tragedy from happening. So the fact that she's acting that way, I think, is just in and of itself, whatever your politics, it is just a sign of how bad our discourse is right now. It's really gross. And I think we get immune to it. We really, we do. Even I do.
Do you?
Yeah. And that was kind of a good reminder that we shouldn't be immune. She should act like a grown up. Let's just start there.
Yeah. And they're looking to export their toxic political discourse all over Europe. Yeah. Steve Bannon said he wants to set up a MAGA-type movement in Ireland. We have a very, very different system, and it does not allow for extremism. So I don't know where Steve Bannon thinks he's going to get his Irish MAGA movement off the ground from.
Yeah, well, judging by much of what comes out of his mouth, I don't think he's really spent all that much time researching it. He just thinks he's Irish American and he's right, so therefore there's probably people in Ireland who can come around thinking he's right.
Does he claim much of his Irish American ancestry? Does he talk
I
about
honestly don't know. He just kind of looks Irish American to me because he's always bright red.
Yeah, he looks like a fella that you might see out down say the pub after 20 pints, and he's
He really does. Yeah.
10th cigar or 10th cigarette, whatever you're having yourself. So, Vince, getting away from Pam Bondi, there was a curious document released during the week. A former Florida police chief said he received a phone call from Donald Trump in 2006, in which President Trump said to him, "Everyone knows about Jeffrey Epstein's behavior."
And said that Ghislaine Maxwell is evil. Yeah. And also told the police chief that Maxwell is evil and you need to look into her.
And that was an FBI document released by the Justice Department.
As far as I can tell, I actually was trying to figure this out because it was actually highlighted by a reporter for the Miami Herald named Julie K. Brown, who is probably more responsible for the scandal than anyone in the world right now.
She was the person that initially set off the landmine that exploded the Epstein Files.
Right. Yeah. About a decade after this plea deal, Epstein signed this very lenient plea deal in 2008. She kind of brought it back to life in a series of articles in the Miami Herald in 2018. I actually wrote about her this week. So she seems to have found this document. I can't quite tell, to be honest, if that is part of the Epstein Files dump and it took her a week to find it, or if she somehow got this separately. But one thing I will say, because particularly if you kind of came across this on social media, you'll have people say, oh, well, there's a lot of stuff in the files and there are some crazy allegations in there that were made to the FBI. This is called a Section 302, which means it's actual notes from an FBI agent. It's directly from the chief of police in Palm Beach in 2006.
Is that guy still alive?
He is still alive, and Brown interviewed him this month.
Okay.
And so you might have seen online some claims that, oh, this probably isn't true. It does seem to be true. This phone call does seem to have happened in 2006. Now, it is worth noting that the Trump administration itself is not exactly jumping on this story. The Justice Department has come out and said that there's no other corroborating evidence that this call took place. Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, to make the story a little stranger, essentially refused to confirm or deny whether the call took place at a public press conference. She said, quote, the call may or may not have happened. It's not clear what Donald Trump himself has said. We'll probably try and come back to the story next week because I'm guessing he may well have something to say. And if he doesn't, that itself might be pretty interesting information. Now, what is probably not true are all the people on right-wing social media saying that Trump is actually a whistleblower. This is not a whistleblower. Trump is calling the police chief, a guy named Ryder, after the investigation has already begun. He's basically congratulating for him, saying, oh, Epstein's a creep. Everyone knows he's done this. I'm glad you're working on it. Ryder winds up running into trouble with the FBI and becomes very disillusioned with the plea deal. So he does seem to be an upstanding guy, and he does seem to be telling the truth. This call actually happened.
He's an honest cop.
By all accounts. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on South Florida policing, but at least in this instance, all the information we have suggests that he was trying his best to really get Epstein to face justice, and he was basically overruled by people at the federal level. Mm-hmm. And, he obviously, as the local chief of police, had no role or ability to do anything about a plea deal that was negotiated by Epstein with federal authorities. But as with everything in this country, everything we talk about has to be seen instantly in partisan lenses, right? So we have to have the people on the right go, oh, look, he knew it all along. He's the whistleblower. And we have to have people on the left go, this is probably fake anyways. It doesn't sound good. What I do think is really worth noting is if it's true, and again, it seems to be true. And I'm saying that as a guy whose initial reaction was, there's no way this is true. This is conspiracy theory stuff. No, if you look into it, it seems like it actually happened. It is bizarre.
There's something that kind of struck me. Like, Trump has consistently denied that he knew of any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. But no, this would seem to suggest he did know there was wrongdoing.
Well, that's one bizarre aspect of it. Absolutely. Yeah. He has said that repeatedly. Oh, no, I never knew anything. People go, why did you tell New York Magazine in 2002 that Epstein likes him on the younger side. To your point, yeah, that does suggest that he was lying pretty seriously about that. So that is, I think, one bizarre aspect of it in the sense of what the is he lying for? He has said pretty consistently, and I've said on this podcast that I believe him when he says this, that he cut ties with Epstein in 2005. Why exactly that happened seems to be a little bit fuzzy. So why in 2019 is he sitting there going, no, I didn't know anything?
Yeah.
Why isn't he saying, yeah, I did. And actually, you know what? I called the police chief and told him that they should be looking into Maxwell. Why is he in 2020, as he famously did, they asked him about Maxwell getting sentenced. And he goes, honestly, I just wish her the best. He goes, what the are you talking about? You wish her the best.
Yeah. I mean, he said in 2019, when Epstein was arrested, he said if he had any suspicions about the disgraced financier, Trump said, he said, no idea. I had no idea. I haven't spoken to him in many years. And this is where we diverge, Vince, I think, in our
Okay.
thinking in regards to talk. I think he was in contact with Epstein after that. It may not have been a sexual nature, but Epstein's own brothers asking him in the emails, long after Trump has said that he's met him, and said that, you know, how's your boy Trump doing? And this was long after Trump said he cut off contact with him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Epstein's own brother said that.
Yeah.
He said, how's your boy Trump doing?
You could certainly interpret that as Epstein has a pipeline into Trump's world.
Yeah, he does.
Through Steve Bannon, principally. So you could certainly see that as something that is, you know, saying, how's your boy Trump doing? In other words, what gossip are you hearing from Trump world?
And the problem with these emails, they can mean 10 or 12 different things, depending on who's saying it, what time of the day it's been said.
The one argument they've made, which I do think is actually reasonable and logical, even though they refuse to say it in a reasonable, logical way, is that if there was a smoking gun related to Trump, it would not have been buried for 20 years. There have just been too many people looking around. There have been too many people involved. There have been too many people incentivized to get that stuff out.
If this guy is credible, and as you said, he seems to be credible, then Trump has actually bigger questions to answer rather than why he's in the Epstein Files, does he not?
I think that's actually fair. I mean, yeah.
Indicates straight up that Trump knew that Epstein was a paedophile and did nothing about it.
Yeah.
Apart from ring the police chief, but nothing else was done after that. He said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. He also said that on the phone. You know, so this could be something that could end up being more damaging to him than as if he was caught doing something in the Epstein Files politically.
I think it would be more damaging if you could come up with a coherent story for why he's acting that way. And that's kind of where we started this, why I think it's so bizarre. Because you're right. He calls the police chief. I guess he's doing something. It's hard to tell, like, to what extent he's actually helping the investigation.
Is he trying to cover his ass? I wonder.
He could be, but that's not really the way to do it. Like, you don't call the police. Like, I can see him. I mean, I think he's got a vindictive side. I think that actually does support his story that he broke off with Epstein the year before, because he does seem like the kind of guy who broke up, for lack of a better term, with his old friend and then called the police chief the next year to try and twist the knife. Like, he seems like that kind of guy. Yeah,
it's that pettiness level that Trump would sink to.
Okay, so that happens. He calls him in 2006. Everybody knows. There's a prosecution deal in 2008. Incredibly sweetheart. Trump has to know something about that. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't do anything. During the campaign, the first time he gets asked about Epstein a couple times, not in really a big way, doesn't say anything. Then he's president of the United States. After he has made this phone call, after he has said that Epstein is creepy and gross and it's a good thing you're going after him, when he is president of the United States, he hires as his Secretary of Labor the guy who negotiated this plea deal. We've talked about that before, which is weird. It's really weird now. If he knew this, and if he knew Epstein was a creep, if he knew he was a pedophile, whatever he's saying, if he knows Maxwell's involved, why on earth is he bringing the guy who negotiated that deal into his cabinet?
Let us leave that as an open-ended question, because there is no real answer to it, because it just feeds into more conspiracy theories. You say about Acosta there that made the plea deal, Trump brought him into his cabinet, and it just opens a whole can of worms, a whole other rabbit hole you need to go down. The dots don't join up unless everybody's involved in a massive criminal conspiracy.
And it gets the point we keep making, that why the conspiracy theories are attractive, because so many aspects of the story you look at, go, why? Like, you can't even get the words out like me right now. You're just so confused.
So I think to end this episode of the podcast, right? So only one of us is right here, okay? Either there is a massive criminal conspiracy going on that I suspect, and I've nothing but circumstantial evidence to go on, right? So either I'm right, it's a massive criminal conspiracy, or you're right, and their American justice system is incredibly incompetent.
Well, I don't think the plea deal itself is a surprise, to be honest with you.
But we did say in an episode that a lot of lawyers were really surprised at this plea deal that he got.
Yeah. But in the context of the way the world works, in the context of the way American justice works, a guy who has access to $1 billion worth of assets or whatever Epstein had, who's going up against a U.S. attorney, got a ridiculously lenient plea deal. You don't need a conspiracy to explain that. That's unfortunately how goes in the world. That Palm Beach police chief has alleged that Epstein's attorneys were trailing him and his deputies and going through their garbage, trying to find ways to incriminate them. Like that's how hard they were looking to find leverage. To me, the issue with this revelation, I can't even think of a conspiracy theory that explains it.
He's not a rational person, Vince. He's not a rational person.
By the standards of Donald Trump's rationality, this is still irrational. Like that's how crazy it is.
If you put 50 people in a room and ask them what happened, you would get 50 different answers.
Of course, yeah.
But I like to see the evil everywhere. I like to see the worst in all our politicians. I'm afraid I'm
That's because you know them personally.
Yes, I know that. I've never been on any island anywhere apart from Achill Island, maybe, and Cape Clear and West Cork. You're just not going to get agreement from anybody, and I think this conspiracy is going to rumble on and on and on. So we better find something else to talk about. So next week we're going to look at artificial intelligence.
Here we are. Hot topic right now. Big topic in finance, big topic in tech. And I think in the last couple of weeks starting to become a big topic socially too. So
yes. Is artificial going to take our jobs? It won't take my job because I have a very funny accent. It'll be hard to read. Might take your job, Vince.
Writing about finance, I think there's an argument that career has a shelf life of about 3 years before artificial intelligence models can read earnings reports and
pick stocks,
financial filings.
Stocks
better.
is the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just a really fascinating topic right now. It's something where we're a lot closer to critical mass than I think some people realize. And so there's going to be a lot to cover there. I would not be surprised if that's a two-parter. But that also is good because we really should spend as much time on this podcast as we can because we have like 2.5 years before there's just AI avatars of us doing this anyways. And we're either on a beach somewhere or we're in an alley somewhere. I'm not sure which.
Yes, I'm working on the AI avatars of us at the moment. I bear a striking resemblance to Tom Cruise and you bear the Brad Pitt, funny enough, Vince. So I'm Tull from the Irish Politics newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin from Wall Street in Maine. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.